I want to welcome everyone to the Street Dog Podcast, brought to you by the Street Dog Coalition. We are a national nonprofit providing free medical care and related services to pets of people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. I am your host, Daria Tavana, and I'm also the Director of Development at the Street Dog Coalition. Now, on our podcast, as you may already know, we explore the world of animal welfare through the eyes of experts, street dog vets, and volunteers, and through the eyes of our partner organizations. We share inspiring stories and provide updates on our advocacy work and the advocacy work of other individuals and organizations doing and making incredible progress in the world of animal welfare. So if you're tuning in live on Facebook, it is so great to have you here. Go ahead, say hello, drop an emoji in the comments. Let us know what your favorite food is. What's the weather like where you're at? What's your dog's name? Something interesting. And if you're listening, I love how our guest, Katie, who I will introduce momentarily, is so into that. Just the enthusiastic nod. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm going to pull up Facebook on my end just I can see what folks are going to do.
Oh, yay. That means you guys, you've got to interact now, because now Katie is looking. So if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, please make sure that you're following the Street Dog Coalition on Facebook so you can also tune in live every episode. And that will give you an opportunity to engage with us in real time. And it will also make us look really good in front of our guests like Katie. So speaking of Katie, today we have a special guest joining us, the lovely, the amazing Katie Campbell, who is the Director of Collaboration and Outreach at Red Rover. So as I'm sure you already know, because Red Rover is such a huge name in the animal welfare world, Red Rover is a national animal welfare nonprofit that focuses on bringing animals out of crisis and strengthening the human-animal bond. So Katie is here to talk a little bit about an important initiative that Red Rover has launched that they are in the thick of right now, called the 25 by 2025 campaign. So this campaign, powered by PetSmart Charities, supported by Purina, aims to make 25% of domestic violence shelters in the United States pet-friendly by the year 2025. I'm so excited about this campaign. So by creating pet-friendly spaces, survivors of domestic violence no longer have to choose between their own safety and the well-being of their beloved pets. So we're going to be discussing the impact of the 25 by 2025 campaign and how it is creating a more compassionate and inclusive environment within domestic violence shelters. So welcome to the podcast, Katie. Woo!
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that amazing intro, Daria. I am just super excited to be here with you. And I just have to say thank you to the Street Dog Coalition for the amazing work that you all do. We're big fans of the human-animal bond, and we're big fans of meeting people and their pets where they're at. And, you all just personify that. So thank you for the amazing work you all do.
Thank you so much. Let's just spend the next 45 minutes thanking one another. How does that sound?
I am here for it. We all do some hard work sometimes, in this field of animal welfare, animal well-being, and the human services. And it's kind of nice to remember that we do good, hard things. So
yes, we do. I feel better already. Thank you, Katie. Maybe, let's dive into some of these questions. It's no secret, I come with questions. And of course, you come with answers. So can you give our listeners a little bit of insight into what piqued your interest with Red Rover? What led you to the organization? And what exactly do you do at Red Rover? Because I think you have the coolest position title.
I have to say I'm a big fan of my title, Director of Collaboration and Outreach, because I got to pick it. I am just a huge fan of collaboration. We don't have to do everything. And we don't have to be the expert in everything, and we can have a much bigger impact when we all work together. So I'll start off with that. Like, I love my title. Red Rover's been around since 1987. We really started with that work of bringing people and their pets out of crisis and into care, with our emergency sheltering services and natural disasters. We also do work in cruelty situations, supporting animals there. And we're really, I'm super excited that we're expanding a lot of what we call our community programs work. And, so doing more work in communities, doing spay neuter clinics, doing some trap neuter return stuff. Hopefully we're going to be doing some stuff with street dog in the future. Should you all need us, and just really, really, I think, important work. We also teach kids about kindness, compassion, and empathy for animals and people through children's books and the Kind News magazine. I think just really helping and supporting our young ones, our kids, to just be, really amazing individuals. And then, of course, to really answer your question, what brought me to Red Rover is our work related to domestic violence. So I'll go ahead and disclose this right now that I grew up an animal lover. My mom was the president of our local humane society, always had, pets around, just really a lifelong animal lover. Fast forward, out of college, I started working in social services, supporting, families experiencing some crisis situations, potentially domestic violence, homelessness. And I never put animals and domestic violence together until I heard about Red Rover. So that is absolutely what drew me to Red Rover. They gave me what I call my light bulb moment, that, there's this link between animal abuse and domestic violence. And I just fell in love with Red Rover. And that was back in 2016. And I'm still here now.
Wow, I appreciate you. That's so cool about your mom. And I really appreciate you kind of giving us insight into all the different elements of, advocacy work that Red Rover is focused on. I love this idea of humane education for younger people and for children. And it seems like there is just such a huge spectrum, right? From helping kids learn more about animals and how to treat animals, to helping individuals, not need to decide between their safety and the comfort that this animal has brought them, or rather not need to decide between their safety and the relationship they have with this animal that's likely brought them a lot of comfort during periods of abuse and unrest. And of course, oftentimes that animal is at risk of being abused when they're in the home with someone that is, an abuser. So I just really appreciate you giving our audience insight into the breadth of work that Red Rover has to offer. And I know that Red Rover has so many other initiatives. We could have a whole podcast episode just chatting about those. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about the 25 by 2025 campaign and how it aims to make domestic violence shelters more pet friendly?
Yeah, I love it. And if you'll bear with me, I'll give a little bit of history, just kind of how we have sort of grown in this domestic violence work. So in 2007, we started providing what we call our Safe Escape grants. And so those essentially help in a case-by-case situation, help provide boarding costs. We help cover the boarding costs for pets while a domestic violence survivor is in shelter. And as many of you probably know who are listening, boarding a pet can be really expensive. And so in 2012, we launched our Safe Housing Grants program. And essentially what we do is we provide a grant, a lump sum of money to a domestic violence shelter or an animal shelter to help them create that space, that dedicated housing for the pets of domestic violence survivors. And, when I started in 2016, it was kind of hard to get some shelter folks, some DV shelter folks, on the phone with me, because rightfully so, they were really busy. They still are really busy, and it just wasn't, it wasn't the right time. And I think one of the most exciting things about the 25 by 2025 movement right now is there is so much enthusiasm and there's so much excitement about becoming pet friendly as a domestic violence shelter. And so part of the campaign is just to help amplify that excitement, and amplify the resources that we provide to help shelters become pet friendly. So, of course, we have the grant funding for that, but we also help walk that walk with organizations, with communities to help them create this kind of programming, which I'm sure we'll probably get into that. But that is why I'm sitting in a conference, outside of a conference room. We just did one of our Don't Forget the Pets workshops yesterday here in Springfield, Illinois, helping organizations create that pet-friendly housing.
That's awesome. And I feel like, for a while, us in the industry, if you will, have known that boarding is really expensive, and there's a systematic issue here, which involves, working together with other organizations to actually make some of these shelters more pet friendly, so we don't even have to board these animals. And so we can provide these animals and these individuals with the relief they need after experiencing some really horrific incidences at home. So I really feel like I get all of your emails, right? So and I remember watching, the launch webinar, and I really do feel like there is this excitement in the air when it comes to this issue now more than ever. So I just want to applaud you and everyone at Red Rover for really riding this wave of awareness and this opportunity to kind of see how big of an impact you can have. It's really exciting. And maybe you can tell us exactly how this campaign is aiming to make domestic violence shelters more pet friendly. Give us the inner workings, if you will.
I love it. Part of the campaign really is designed to help spread the word, to those organizations, those domestic violence organizations, that are maybe interested in becoming pet friendly, or maybe are, just slightly before that, and they're, maybe a little more hesitant about becoming pet friendly, and really just sharing with them about the barriers that not being pet friendly present for domestic violence survivors to leaving an abuser. There's a really interesting report that came out back in 2021. It's called the URI PALS report. And it was a joint effort between the Urban Resource Institute in New York City and the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They surveyed about 2,500 survivors about their experience of, domestic violence and animal abuse. And 97% of those survivors said, being able to take their pet with them factored into the decision to leave. 97% of 2,500. I am not good at math, but I will tell you that's
a
a
lot.
lot of survivors, right? So we know that survivors want this kind of service. They need this kind of service. 91% of those survivors also said, my pet plays a significant role in my ability to heal and survive. So when we're not pet friendly, when we don't have pet housing programs, we know it's a barrier. But the 25 by 2025 campaign also highlights the benefits of this kinds of programming. We hear from so many domestic violence organizations that their staff appreciate not having to say no to survivors about their pets. They enjoy having survivors and pets in their shelters. It makes it feel like home to them. They get those healing benefits. So it's, pet parents, survivors, it's staff, it's non-pet owning folks in shelter that really appreciate having pets in shelter. And I think one of the biggest bonuses that we like to share with our human services folks is this is a money raiser, y'all. We hear from so many domestic violence organizations that it is so much easier to raise money for animals than it is for people, which is a sad fact to convey.
And that's also amazing, because we raising
Right.
money for animals are usually saying it's so much easier to raise money for people than animals. But I digress. Go ahead. I'm shocked to hear that, but that's fascinating.
I know. Well, and you know what I think might be, and I'm totally just guessing now that you just said that, but I do think there might be something really powerful in that idea of like collaboration and like highlighting the human animal bond. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah.
Yeah, like folks don't like talking about domestic violence. Folks don't like talking about homelessness and these really hard subjects. And they have a really hard time understanding, everything that goes into it. But you know what they do know and what they do understand is love for pets.
Yeah.
And so, I think organizations have success with that when they can really highlight, this is a barrier to service, but then this also helps folks get to whatever their own success is, whatever they determine that to be. Pets really help that process.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And I think there's so much truth to that. And I also see we have a handful of people tuning in live who are being really shy in the comments. So by all means, if you're tuning in live, let us know if you have a question for Katie. Let us know what your relationship with your pet at home means to you. We love hearing from you. So I just wanted to take advantage of all these people who are tuning in live and let you know that this is a conversation between me and Katie and you as well. So thank you, Katie, for shining a light on that. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I agree. I think that while, experiencing homelessness or experiencing domestic violence might be tricky for some people who are fortunate enough to not have lived through those experiences to relate to, I think there's a lot of truth to layering in this idea of the human animal bond, which is relatable to anyone who's had a really cute pet at home. So I totally hear you in terms of this particular intersection being really interesting to volunteers, to donors, to individuals that see a need to not only, assist these individuals who are navigating domestic violence and, leaving these situations, but to also reduce the amount of pets that are coming into shelters because people have to surrender their pets to go to these domestic violence shelters as well. So it's such an incredible initiative. I'm really, really excited by it. And I'm curious to know how exactly, I know Red Rover is such a collaborative organization. You guys are huge. You guys are collaborating with so many incredible nonprofits. And I'm curious to know, how exactly are you, through the 25 by 2025 campaign, collaborating with these domestic violence shelters, these advocates and supporters, to raise awareness and make this positive impact?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought up collaboration, because again, one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
The 25 by 2025 campaign is a collaborative project in and of itself, and so we are collaborating with Greater Good Charities on this project. And within that, one of the ways that we're helping to support organizations in becoming pet friendly is through our Don't Forget the Pets project, which again is a collaborative project with Greater Good Charities Rescue Rebuild program. And for those of you who don't know them, they are a fantastic organization, fantastic group, and they're basically a nonprofit construction program. And so they travel all around the US, helping to create these pet-friendly spaces. They also do work at animal shelters, but particularly for this conversation, they help create those pet-friendly spaces at domestic violence shelters. And so what we're able to do through the Don't Forget the Pets project is really help organizations through that process. Everything from like understanding the why to like, what does your program physically look like in terms of renovation, construction, to the just super exciting conversation around policies and procedures that I get to talk about. And, just fundraising. We do it in the workshop form, which is why I'm here in Illinois right now. But then we also provide, what we call coaching. And so it's really that one-on-one support, um, to these organizations in creating the program. And specifically to kind of touch back on your question, how do we collaborate with organizations? And so we really, we come into a community. We work with what we call a host community and work with them to bring in representatives from the animal sheltering world, from the human services sheltering world, and the veterinary community. And truthfully, anybody else who's interested, law enforcement, humane law enforcement, social services, child protective or child welfare services, and bring them together in the same room. I think we kind of tend to get a little siloed sometimes, and it can be really hard for us to reach out of our silo and kind of reach across that aisle and work with others. And so, really at the core of our DFTP work, at the core of 25 by 2025, is getting folks to communicate with each other from these different types of organizations, and helping them really through that process of, how can they work together? What are some, tips that we've learned from other organizations? But it really needs to be centered on what works for them, what works for them as a community, what works for them as collaborative partners. And we just kind of guide them through that process. So that's, collaboration really is at the core of kind of everything we do with our domestic violence work.
That's incredible. And I know that it really does take a village, and obviously it's difficult enough to create progress as a singular organization, but I've experienced how wonderful it is to kind of link arms with organizations that are doing similar work that is kind of adjacent to the work that you're doing, and just really watching these circles kind of rise to the top is so cool and so exciting. And I know a lot of our listeners and supporters are members of those organizations that we at the Street Dog Coalition, and surely you at Red Rover have also linked arms with. So if you're listening to this episode and you have helped either, the Street Dog Coalition or Red Rover or both, I just want to thank you so much, because I think, as Katie just said so eloquently, we really have to come together to solve these big, daunting issues and create a safer planet for future generations, so that our children who are suffering in ways that individuals at these shelters are suffering can do so with a bit more peace of mind and a bit more flexibility, and not need to make really unnecessarily difficult decisions like saving their own life or staying with their beloved pet. So I really appreciate this notion of collaboration as well. It's one of my favorite words. And I just want to thank everybody listening who's helped. And I know, Katie, that people who are listening are feeling fired up, because I can read their minds, because I know our listeners so well. And I know that they want to, if they haven't already supported Red Rover in their efforts as part of the 25 by 2025 campaign, I just know that they're itching to do that. So maybe you can give us some insight and tell us how, survivor advocates, veterinary professionals, animal lovers can contribute to and support the 25 by 2025 campaign.
I love it. I think you've spent some time on the 25 by 2025.org website recently.
I have.
So you have. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So, folks, I really encourage you to check out the website, 25 by 2025.org. And as Daria mentioned,
there's a link in the show notes. Sorry to interrupt you, Katie. I have included a link below here in the show notes. Go ahead.
I love it. No, it's perfect. Thank you. Check it out, because you will get some information, no matter where you're coming at, in this work, what you do, if you're an animal lover, if you're an advocate, or just somebody who wants to like shout this from the rooftops, you'll get all the information on the website. You can sign up for the toolkit. The toolkit has lots of great language that you can share on social media, via email, even letters to the editor, because we know that's a thing still, which I love. So lots of sample language for you to share. You can even download a badge, to kind of display, how you're supporting this effort. If you're already a pet-friendly shelter, or you're in the process of becoming pet-friendly, or even if you're a survivor yourself and you want to share about this kind of work, you'll get your badge, you can display that on social media. And most importantly, you're going to stay up to date on all the exciting things that come up for us, new workshops, presentations, and just new learning. I think that's one of the most important things that, we do via the DFTP platform, that we do via 25 by 2025, is that we're constantly learning. Like, this is a ever evolving space, and we're not experts in it. I like to consider myself a continuing learner. And I really feel passionate about getting that learning back out to folks. And so, you will get that information via the 25 by 2025 website. And when you sign up for the emails.
It's great. As someone who has clearly spent an afternoon or two on the website, I really enjoy it. I find it to be really informative and really inspiring. The messaging around the campaign is fantastic. I receive your emails and I read them and I love them. And I always feel, I always learn something new when I visit the website and when I read the materials that you're sending out to your supporters. And it's just, it's a campaign that I feel I didn't know a lot about until engaging with the campaign, or rather this cause, this imperative work that needs to be done to make these shelters a bit more inclusive. So I really want to encourage our listeners, if you're curious about this topic, if this seems like an intersection between women's rights, gender studies, human rights issues, and of course, animal welfare, the human animal bond, keeping pets with their people. If this really feels like an intersection of two things you're passionate about or curious about, go ahead and click the link in the show notes and find a way that you can get involved. I know there's a lot of ways to get involved, and making donations is a huge way to get involved. And of course, the donations that you make to the 25 by 2025 campaign will go directly toward this incredible initiative. It will go toward keeping pets with their people. And I also want to encourage you to follow Red Rover on all the socials, I think that your organization, Katie, does a really great job at bringing people together, keeping them informed, and shining a light on issues that are not always talked about, that are actually really difficult to talk about. So I really appreciate that. And I have one more question for you, Katie. I'm gonna put you on the spot with this question. If someone, what's your favorite date? Give us a great date idea. No, I'm not gonna ask that question, although I am curious. So if someone is listening to this episode and if they are in a difficult situation at home, and if they're uncertain as to what they're experiencing, is if it is domestic violence, if they just know that something with their home life is not right, and if they have a pet and if they're afraid of losing their pet, what advice would you give someone who is listening to this who needs help?
Yeah. I kind of feel like you read my mind, because I think one of the most important things that we can do in general is raise awareness and sort of normalize this conversation around domestic violence and normalize the conversation around domestic violence and pets. I'm going to throw out one more statistic for you from that URI PALS report. 72% of the survivors who they chatted with didn't even know that a pet housing program was a thing. So we have 97% saying, taking my pet with me factors into my decision to leave, while at the same time, 72% didn't even know that resources are available. So this is a really, really big gap. And so I think one of the most important things that we can do is to raise awareness about resources that are out there. And so to your question specifically, I would encourage anybody who wants to learn more, thinks they might need some resources, has some questions, definitely reach out to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. They are experts. They're able to, just talk through you with that, or talk through that with you. And they also are able, ask about pets, because they are able to tell you what pet housing options are out there. And there's also two other really great websites that folks might be interested in. One is our partnership with domesticshelters.org. So we have a data sharing partnership with them. So you can go to that website. You can look up your location, and then you can filter those resources out by pet housing options. And then there's also the Safe Havens Mapping Project, which is another great resource. But yeah, definitely check out those resources. You'll get the information that you need, and you'll get the resources that you might need as well.
Thank you, Katie. Wow. I really appreciate that response. And it is comforting to know that there are plenty of tools for individuals who are able and willing to look into resources that could save their life, that could keep them with their pet, that could, afford them the opportunity to walk a different path than they're walking now. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Katie. This was such an amazing episode. I know that the individuals who are tuning in right now, they're animal lovers, they're human rights advocates, they are feminists. And if they're not, then well, we love them anyway. Who am I to impose my opinions on all of our listeners? But I really know that a lot of the individuals who tune into this podcast are just looking for ways to learn more about the issues that are threatening animals and their safety, individuals and their safety. And this was really eye-opening for me, and I'm sure it was eye-opening for our listeners. So please, if you're tuning in, go ahead and click the link to the 25 by 2025 campaign in the show notes. Show Red Rover some love, learn more about their campaign. And if you know someone, or if you are someone who is experiencing a lot of friction at home and is experiencing abuse where they live, please check out some of the resources that Katie so lovingly shared with us. I'm sure you won't regret it. And Katie, you're the best. I think you have you just have such cool energy. I kind of want to be best friends with you. Is that weird to say? I said it anyway.
I mean, we're already best friends, aren't we?
We are. That's right. A conversation between old friends.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, are we done already? That flew
We are
by.
done already.
Gosh.
I know.
Well, have me back if you're up for it. I would love to come back.
I will. I really will. Katie, this was so cool. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your clearly very busy life. And by life, I mean advocacy work to chat with us. We will absolutely have you back. I know. I would kind of love to hear you and Katrina chat as well. That would be a great conversation. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
And if I don't let you go, I will keep you for another 45 minutes. So be careful what you wish for, Katie. Thank you again from the bottom of my heart for the work that you're doing. It is incredible work. And I really appreciate it, as I know our listeners appreciate it as well. And thank you, Katie. And thank you to everyone who tuned in today.
For sure. And, thank you again for the amazing work that you all are doing. It truly is just amazing, beautiful, beautiful work. And I just so appreciate you helping us spread the word about this. And yeah, ditto, and thanking everybody who's watching this and tuning in. It really does take a community, and y'all are part of it. So welcome to the community.
Yeah, I love that. What a note to go out on. Thanks again, Katie. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks all.